Ready. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday to you. My name is Phyllis Newbill. I'm the Associate Director for Educational Networks here at ICAT and in the Center for Educational Networks and Impacts. So glad you all are here, both online and also in the room with us in the Cube at the Moss Art Center. It's a great Friday morning. We've got lots of exciting things happening around the Moss Art Center today. A couple of announcements to get us started. First, the Roger and Debbie West Student Seed Grants. We've been mentioning these for a few weeks now, but those are due October 8th. So if you are a student or a group of students crossing some disciplines, crossing some colleges with a great idea, please apply for one of those grants. Also, the Science Festival, Virginia Tech Science Festival, is coming up this fall, and that will span a couple of months, actually, between the end of this month and about the middle of November. And so we are looking for exhibitors and presenters to present to field trips and to Zoom meetups. If you are ready to do that, the Science Festival applications are open. There should be a big email goes out in a couple hours. And those are due September 30th. We've had some great ICAT coverage in the news this week, and I want to congratulate David Franasich and his team with George Hardebeck for the great and amazing, if you all missed the 150th projection mapping onto Lane Hall, make sure you watch some of the videos about it. It was a really just such a nice experience and bringing together so much of the history and the technology. So we're really proud of David and that team for that work this week. And also the Science Museum exhibits that recently opened at the Science Museum of Western Virginia. Got some media coverage both on the VT News this week and also on WSLS, so check that out as well. Now, a couple of housekeeping things. In the room, there is a 360-degree camera. We're broadcasting live right now, so you're on TV. Just so you know that. If you have questions, we would love to know. We're going to allow some time at the end for questions. If you're online, I hope you'll use that questions link. I've got that form pulled up right here, so I'll see your questions. Please put those in. And in the room, if you have questions, just raise your hand, but wait for me to get to you with the mic. I'll hold it for you. And then that way the people online can hear what you ask as well. So have those questions ready? Okay. With that, this is such an exciting project. We've been working with this team for a long time, and we're excited to see where they are now. So the VR, virtual reality, Viewfinder project will be presented by Sangwon Lee, Myung-Hoon Jeon, and James Kiskaden.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Playdate. So my name is Sang. I want to talk about VRviewfinder. As you might have guessed by the name and the picture, it's basically a cross-device VR system where you can see through the window of the motion track tablet. So let me talk about the motivation. Why do we need this? So you can imagine that often wearing VR headset is solitary experience. Like you might have been in exhibition and then people like wearing VR headset and maybe something inside, like something cool is happening inside the VR, but like as a bystander, you don't really know what's happening. So how can we make this more social experience? That was an idea. But also for the VR headset user as well, like they may like visit the exhibition with their family members or kids, like how do you create this social gathering, like, in the public demo setting. So that was our motivation. So I think we have a solution here. One solution here that I could find is something like this. So, hey, let's make everyone wear a headset. So that's a solution that I think at the end of the day, this guy in the picture will make this headset ubiquitous and cheaper so that everyone will get it. But there's something uncomfortable about this picture. I don't know what it is. Maybe because it's a commercial product event, or maybe because that's the only guy who's not wearing a headset. Like, I saw an internet meme that says drug dealer never consume, like on this picture. But that's kind of the response that I get. So it's not just a matter of ubiquity and the price. So we realized that like a headset is not necessarily inclusive enough for everyone. So you can imagine that like this picture over here, like this 3-year-old girl wearing VR headset only exists in stock photo, never exists in practice, because manufacturer does not recommend children to wear a headset because you don't really know what the impact will be. There's a study that that says like it will impact their vision development, or for some certain group of user, like wearing a headset is not something that they're willing to do, like because of their maybe because of their hair texture or hairstyle. I mean, let's say I put some wax on it, and then if I wear it, it's gonna create some highway on it, right? Like it's gonna remove makeup, or some people will have nausea. Some people wear like big glasses. So that I'm not, maybe it's cheap and ubiquitous, but I'm not willing to wear it. So how can you involve these people? So what we did is this VRviewfinder system where, hey, maybe we can use cross-device VR system, which means that VR headset and like more accessible device, which is a tablet in this case. We could use this tablet and then make it, we're going to use motion track tablet, which means that you can actually hold it and then wander around the room and then see the VR world through it. And then you can even interact with the VR headset user and then interact with the other patrons. And then the bystander will have access to both worlds, physical world and the virtual world. So this is our efforts to make VR experience more inclusive and social. So yeah, well, I realized the best way to demonstrate the safety of the program, safety of the system, is to, inspired by old school Robin Hood, like to take advantage of my own son, in the system. And then I would not let him wear VR headset, but I'll be fine with, having him running around in the room with his tablet. He's watching YouTube video every day anyway. So he's having fun. He's playing a nice little game, but this is not all. But the other thing you could do is, if this remote controls works, he can also interact with the VR headset user. So here in the video, Tasif, who is leading this project, the PhD student in computer science, is playing a Pictionary game with Jason. So he's drawing 3D objects in the room, and then Jason is kind of guessing what he's drawing, and then you can see he's already distracted with all the things that are happening in the VR world. And then I'm not worried about him at all, right? So this is a way that maybe we can involve children or like people who are not willing to wear a headset in this social VR experience. So yeah, well, I mean, this was ICAD funded project. Well, I mean, I didn't use the money entirely to amuse my own son. So Pilar is going to talk about the actual activity that we did. So take it away.
Sure. So let me briefly introduce the first activity. So to make it more social and accessible, we decided to use tablet system. And under that tablet, we attached 6 degree of freedom Vive tracker this way. And then while this audience member walking around holding this tablet, they can actually explore the virtual environment. So basically you can imagine we put a lot of virtual cameras inside the virtual environment. And this tracker change the position of the cameras and angles of the cameras. So that's how it works. And then we implemented this in 2 sites, one in Mind Music Machine Lab in CLC and another over here, Perform Studio. So to test usability, presence, and situational awareness, we conducted an experiment. And in the second and third tasks, we compared this VRviewfinder with traditional egocentric view, in which audience members can watch what's going on from the HMD user's perspective. So to test usability, we asked our participants to play a ball finding game, so like Jason did. So they walking around and finding 20 balls, and after that, we asked them to fill out SUS, system usability scale. And this scale is actually absolute scale, so after over 60 or 70, there's good usability, and if it's over 85.5, then usually that's considered excellent usability. And VRviewfinder received 87.9 on average, so that falls into excellent usability. In the second task, the participants were asked to play an escape game. So HMD user, which is experimenter, they're supposed to find the 2 keys to escape the room. And this VRviewfinder audience user can actively explore the room together and guide this HMD user where to find the keys. So after that game, we asked them to fill out IPQ questionnaire, one of the validated presence questionnaires. And as you see in that graph, our VRviewfinder received significantly higher presence scores compared to egocentric view. So the last task, they played a picture game. So the HMD user, who is experimenter, they're drawing something in the VR. And this VRviewfinder user was supposed to guess what it is. And in the middle of that game, we paused the VR screen and then asked our participants what's going on. So basically, situational awareness. And at the outset of this project, we're not sure whether there would be any difference in terms of situational awareness between egocentric view and VRviewfinder, because in the egocentric view, at least, the audience members can watch what's going on from HMD user's point of view. But they might not be able to look around, right? They don't have active intervention. But in the VRviewfinder, they might more freely explore this VR environment. So they might have better situational awareness, but they might get lost because there's no reference point, right? They just look around. And as a result, there's no significant difference between these 2 conditions in terms of 3 levels of situational awareness. And we also asked them whether they felt any motion sickness, and there's no significant difference between egocentric view and VRviewfinder. And actually, numerically, in VRviewfinder, fewer participants felt motion sickness. Lastly,
can I ask one question
Sure.
real quick? I know that some of our listeners may have this one. What is HMD user?
Oh, sorry, that is head-mounted display user. So anyways, one user had headset, and this VRviewfinder is designed for audience members, so non-HMD users. Yep, the bystander. So lastly, we asked that preference. And as you see there, VRviewfinder users, among the 26 participants, 24 participants preferred VRviewfinder because that provides agency, interactivity, wider view. Of course, some of them don't like it because it's physically tiring to hold. So if we move on to mobile phone or other devices, that problem might be solved. Okay, let's move on to art.
All right, so another activity that we did with Professor Zach Dewar, who's unfortunately not able to be here tonight, not tonight, but this morning, because of the health concern. We thought this platform could provide a novel platform for artists because, you can imagine that you can build a sculpture that exists in the physical world, and then and something that exists in the virtual world as well. So you can create this juxtapose between across 2 different reality, and that could be provide a new dimension for expressivity. So James, who has been working on the project with Zach, will talk about this artwork, hybrid artwork.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. So my role has basically been to work with a physical sculpture in the real world that could then be explored digitally, manipulated digitally, and could kind of offer a use for the viewfinder that lends itself more to art and sort of how we can express ourselves both physically and digitally, kind of meet that hybrid together. So initially, when Zach approached me about this project, he described it as sort of being a sculpture of a person that could grow, almost like a plant was how he described it, which initially made very little sense to me. But as you can see here, you kind of see this figure deform and shape into different shapes, and that's kind of where we went from there. And that's what we explored for a while, and that was kind of our initial direction until after some time experimenting with that, he approached me again, and he approached me with this video, and he said that it really stuck out to him. So you can see on the right that picture of that dancer is the initial photo. And what this artist did was they took that initial photo and they put it over a printer scanner. And as the scanner would scan the original image, they would move it around and distort it and find these interesting forms and shapes and motions that this dancer would take. And he said that he wanted to explore finding the original photo in a physical art form and being able to express these different digital distortions through the digital VR viewfinder. So if this would work. So he sent me this 3D model of these dancers that he constructed that do this sort of distortion thing. They merge between these different forms, and it was my job to take this 3D model and sculpt it to the best of my ability. So that's what I did. Where you see it right now is what I sculpted, and where it's morphing to is kind of where you would see it go through the VR viewfinder. So yeah, as you can see here, this is just kind of an idea of if you existed in this space with this sculpture and were sort of able to fully walk around it, fully be able to see every angle of it, every aspect of it, and you'd be able to explore it like it was in a museum, just like normal. But the trick is that it's digital, so it can technically take whatever shape it wants to, which would allow for a lot more freedom with expression, sort of what this can say, things of that nature. So these are the in-progress photos that I sent to Zach over the summer, and the quality of the lighting is to kind of show the texture to Zach of where we were in progress. They are a lot more developed now, but this does give you a pretty good sense of the scale and sort of what they come to look like. So they're about 15 inches tall and would sit in a wooden base. And yeah, as you can see, they don't have hands yet in this picture, but I swear they do in the finished product. They sit freestanding with their fully deformed, elongated figures. And through the VR viewfinder, you'd be able to see them change and take different shapes and basically move. They would be an animated thing in front of you through the viewfinder that would remain static in the real world. So yeah, that was basically my role, was constructing these polymer clay figures out of wire and foil. And that's where we find ourselves now we're in the process of cooking it and finding a kiln to harden it so that we can display it. So I'll pass it back over.
Right, so I'm going to briefly talk about the future direction that we're taking. So we have many spin-off projects from this. So one obvious thing that we are planning to do is to scale the system so they can hold multiple users all at the same time. And right now it's working for one user, but we're going to hold, because we want to deploy the system in practice, like in a gallery setting or exhibition, we should be able to hand out tablets, more tablets. And we're actually going to use Zach and James' artwork to exhibit in a gallery, and then use this system to so the visitor could experience this artwork in two different worlds. And then we're going to run an observational study on how to understand how people interact with the system and how these cross-reality artwork could could engage the audience. Another thing that we did this year actually was maybe we could utilize this idea and then deploy it in science museums, because in a science museum all the children and family members join, but it will be difficult to use VR headsets. So maybe you can use the system to engage family members and children to have some STEM learning. So we propose this proposal to NSF, and then to facilitate socially constructed learning in an informal setting. And then you can see the team, all the essential people from ICAT, including Phyllis. We're partnering with Science Museum of Western Virginia and ICAT to deploy the system and in the context of Science Museum and exhibition. Another spin-off project, or maybe this could be useful for construction worker training. You can imagine that VR is a promising solution for construction workers, because you can bring realistic environment without having to compromise safety in the training session. But again, this is a solitary experience. What do they what would instructors do while people are doing VR? How can the instructor engage the rest of the classroom in this setting? So we wanted to scale this VR setting and then use this tablet system or even large-scale display so that you can actually, instructors can actually engage the rest of the classroom and then maybe even bring some active learning components while this person is demonstrating what's going on in VR. So I think that's all we have, and I want to acknowledge that this was a collective action. We had a lot of three professors and a lot of students from various disciplines. So I would like to thank their, a lot of efforts that they put into this project. And well, thank you very much for your attention. And then, yeah, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. I'm loving looking at your team and seeing computer science and industrial systems engineering and School of Visual Arts all together in one team. That is what we love at ICAT. We love crossing those disciplines and being transdisciplinary. Let's open the floor to questions. Are there questions in the room? There's a little delay for the ones online. Yeah, I'll walk to you. I'll come sit beside you, but I'll hold the mic.
Hey, so my question is about the system usability that you guys were talking about earlier in the presentation. So in my experience with VR, I've sort of found that, in my opinion, the hardware sort of becomes the bottleneck, so to say. I find that it can be bulky, it can it like chews through battery pretty quickly. You guys showed that there's excellent system usability. I guess I would like to know what kind of questions go into that metric, and perhaps what aspects of the hardware and the software contribute to that, and maybe do you have any serious hardware concerns or not?
And can you introduce yourself? Sorry, I didn't tell you that.
Oh, sorry. My name is Danny Faruqi.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. So Solve System Usability Scale is a standardized 10-item questionnaire about usability. So that all subjective questions, whether you want to use this or you want to purchase this, that kind of question. So not particularly software, hardware, but we see some issues like I introduced in terms of fatigueness, because they have to carry this tablet. So if we use mobile phone or other types of hardware, that might get rid of that issue. And so far, for one user, we don't see that much lagging or a connection issue. But because we plan to increase this extent to multiple users, then maybe there's some technical caveat, and we'll try to solve that issue. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. What other questions do we have in the room? I have one for James. James, I see from the list there that you were an undergraduate. Can you talk about what you're studying?
Yes. Yes, excuse me. I am a creative technology student, kind of gearing it around animation, since that's what I'm most interested in. But I do a lot of sculpture work just for fun. That's how Zach came to reach out to me.
Nice. Thank you. I think one of the points we can make here is that almost regardless of what you're studying at Virginia Tech, there's some piece, some place for you in these projects. Other questions? Oh, there's one. Sorry.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. So it looked like in the videos that the VR, the headset user was represented as a pretty simple avatar. Are you working on cutting the video out of the real person so that the real person appears in the virtual scene?
Not at the moment, but that's the well, it's a VR role. So like one way to think about it is that you have access to the visual outside the beyond the tablet. So maybe we thought having virtual representation could be more beneficial in terms of like having bystanders or viewers to have more immersive experience. So that's one idea that we had, but we are going the other direction actually.
Go ahead. Where's it? Oh,
Sam.
coming your way.
I'm Tanner with iCat. I was curious about the egocentric users, whether they were able to walk around as much as the non-egocentric users, and if not, what impact that had on their preferences.
We were trying to reflect what happens in real life. Like typically, if you go to exhibition, what you would see is like a secondary monitor, which is going to mirror what the headset user is doing. Sometimes monoscopic view, sometimes stereoscopic view. So we, in that setting, like people do not move and people do not have agency to change the perspective. So that was our baseline. And then in the experimental setting, I think we ask participants to sit in front of a computer and then see what the VR headset user was looking at. Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chelsea from Sunny. Sang, could you talk a little bit more about your son's experience and maybe what you kind of took away from that?
Well, now he knows what VR is. Like he thinks that is VR. That's one thing. So in his mental model, VR is like cool tablet thing that you can move around. So obviously he hasn't experienced the other types of VR. And fortunately, like we only prepared 3 tasks, and he's keep nagging me to, hey, I want to do VR again. Like, but that's it's gonna be the same thing over and over again. So it was difficult for me to have him to answer his question. But I think he enjoyed there's 3 witnesses, like the students who were running this experiment was having fun with him, and then it was hard for me to stop him doing the VR the games that we created. So I think he enjoyed, and sometimes from time to time he talks about it, like he wanted to come back to Mozart Center and perform studio and then do PR. So I guess I could assume that he liked it. Yeah.
Excellent. Can you say, I'll ask one, can you say a bit more about in the museum experience? There is the technology itself, and we've sort of talked generally about the game. What do the learners come away with? What do they do when they're in that technology? And we've heard about we've seen the dancer, but I'm not clear what happens. What is the user experience like?
Right. So yeah, obviously a tablet is a great device for interaction. So you can imagine that the affordance that it has already is going to be useful to interact with the VR world. So you can imagine, like the example that we showed in the picture was like experiencing solar system, but maybe we can bring some active learning components, like hey, you'll be the sun and I'll be the moon, and then I'm gonna turn around, and then let's create an eclipse, for example, so that they can understand how it works, and then maybe they can simulate how the planet rotates, and then that they can learn something about velocity, time, and speed. So we're trying to create interactive learning components within the system, which is going to be different from what we had so far, which was more like observation, like observers role, but we're going to make it interactive. To be able to do that, we need to scale it and then use the tablet to interact with the headset user as well as the virtual objects in the world.
Thank you. We've had one come in online. This is an amazing project that tackles the problem of isolation in VR, which I think is everyone who's worked with VR can identify with that. That's a great comment. Are there any measures that you're doing of connection versus isolation? And what about empathy?
That's a big jump.
It's a big question.
So what was right before empathy again?
So are there
connection?
measures of connection versus
Connection,
isolation?
okay.
Is that something we're looking at?
I think one thing we thought about is that, hey, like this tablet, tablet user can access virtual world as well as the physical world. So like, in VR or mixed reality, presence is the measure that that gauge the sense of being there, like in sense of being in the virtual world, but you have access to the physical world. So how do we measure the physical connection that we have? So one thing that we thought about is that, hey, maybe we should measure situational awareness in virtual world as well as the physical world. Like, so maybe we can have some passerby or have something interesting happening around you, but like knowing both the world, which may not be ideal for immersiveness, but for the social connection that could be useful to have a collective experience. So that's one thing that we are considering. Empathy is the pretty difficult one to answer in one good line, unfortunately. But I'm trying to answer that question. But VR is a so-called ultimate empathy machine because you can literally share someone else's perspective. This could be another channel to experience someone else's perspective, not only through their eyes, but also from their own standing and where they stand in the third-person point of view. So hopefully that will help to have facilitate perspective sharing, especially in the context of interacting with VR users. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, we're at time, so I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I especially want to thank our presenters. You all were wonderful, and I'm sure there's a few more donuts, and feel free to hang out and ask some more questions.